Hey guys, MVSC1 again, and today I have a Flareon list for you. So this deck is really flexible. Each Flareon list can have 20 different cards from a different Flareon list. It's really different depending on who's using it and what the metagame is like, and depending on what you want to tech. So just so you know, this list could be very different from another person's list and still be good. Um, the lists are just incredibly different depending on how you want to run the deck, and it's hard to say what the best way is to do it just because it's such an unpopular deck. But it is good, and it has seen some pretty good placings. Dustin or Dylan Bryan, I believe, made top 16 at Worlds with a Flareon deck. Kyle Sukovic has made top 8 at regionals with a Flareon deck. Maybe it was a States. Either way, both good. So I've been testing the deck out again since right now we have a really defined metagame. That's the perfect time to use Flareon. And what I mean by a defined metagame is I mean the decks that people are using are pretty standard. Like there's not a huge amount of weird decks right now. It seems like the metagame is pretty much Yveltal variants, Rizine Genesect, some Aromatisse, and Plasma. Those seem like the big decks. So basically what I have is text for all of those decks to beat them and Pokemon that are super effective against them. So I'll just get right to it. So we'll start with a Pokemon. The Pokemon is essentially the most important part of the deck. And there are like 22 Pokemon, I want to say. There's a bunch because you have Flareon and Raichu, and they both benefit from having a lot of Pokemon in the deck. So I start with the Raichu line. I know it would make sense to start with Flareon because the deck is called Flareon, but actually this is my thickest line. It's a 3/3 Raichu, and the reason I have such a thick Raichu line is just because it's probably the best card in the deck. It's got free retreat, Circle Circuit for 1 double colorless energy, does 100 damage if you have a full bench, which you almost always do. It's super effective against Lugia and Yveltal. Also Empoleon, but that probably doesn't matter too much. So it pretty much just helps in almost every matchup. Even when you don't have a Pokemon or your opponent doesn't have a Pokemon that's weak to Electric, it's still just a solid attacker. It's just very good. So that's why I think a 3/3 line is a good idea. You want to get a Pikachu out on the first turn every game if you're going against Plasma or a Yveltal variant. So that's why I run the 3/3. We have one Sableye. This is because we run Rainbow Energy in the deck, and you can take advantage of Junk Hunt. I found that it's really nice to be able to Junk Hunt with this deck because you can recycle Enhanced Hammer and other important items just like Computer Search and stuff. I feel like most decks would run Sableye if they can. It's just really nice to be able to pick up those items. Also, there's a 1 random receiver. If you get into supporter drain, you can Junk Hunt for that. This is obviously one card that you could switch out if you don't like the idea of Sableye. You could easily just run something else, but I think it's a good addition, and it's worked pretty well in my testing. We have one Virizion just to stop special conditions. This is going to help your matchup against Yveltal a lot, because then they won't be able to put you to sleep, which can be a big problem with this deck. So we have one Virizion for that reason, because it takes advantage of Rainbow Energy, obviously, so the Grass Energy will stop those special conditions. We have one Darkrai, just to give all of your Pokemon with Rainbow Energy on them free retreat. That's really the only reason. Occasionally you might use Night Spear, but that's 3 attachments, and there's no energy acceleration for this deck, so that's probably not going to happen very often. It's mostly just for the ability. And those are the only 2 EXs in the deck, and they don't even really attack. Hopefully you just leave them on the bench. So then we have a 2/2 Lucario. This is actually the reason that I started running Rainbow Energy, is because his ability Dual Armor says if this Pokemon has any metal energy attached to it, this Pokemon's type is both fighting and metal. So the reason I added this is because TDK is popular at my league, and so Lucario is going to hit Kyurem for weakness. Also, it hits Fairy-type Pokemon for weakness, so if there's any Aromatisse, you're going to be able to one-shot that very easily. But if you're not expecting to see any TDK, I don't think you should include this. Maybe instead you could include 2 or 3 Terrakion, just to get the fighting type. But also I found Lucario is very good because its attack Hurricane Kick does 60 plus 30 more for each prize your opponent has taken. So after they've taken 3 prizes, if you just have a Muscle Band on him, he does 170 damage. So I found that I can take mid to late game knockouts with Lucario a lot. So I like it for those two reasons. Also, it just takes two attachments, one fighting energy or one rainbow, obviously, and then one double colorless energy, which is a little bit hard to achieve sometimes, but it almost always works out. So, yeah, this is very good here for hitting Darkrai and Thundurus for weakness, both of them. Those are the main reasons. Also, like I said, Kyurem, and then any fairy type Pokemon, even yeah, any fairy type Pokemon. I'd like to have a third Riolu, but it's hard to find space in the deck. I might cut the Sableye for it, but who knows? We'll keep going. This is just a general list, or this is the list that I have at least, but it's very open to change. I mean, you could change the deck a lot. This is just what works for me right now. So the Flareon line is just 3 EV and 2 Flareon, and then 1 Leafeon. This Leafeon is a card that I had taken out for a while. I used to have a 1 Druddigon, but instead I added the Leafeon just because it's a solid attacker if your opponent doesn't have any Dragon types, whereas Druddigon takes a double colorless energy, which you want to conserve in this deck, and Leafeon just takes 1 grass energy. And also hits for weakness against Keldeo, which I found was in a lot of decks besides Blastoise. So you have it in Aromatisse. Sometimes I think it's really good in Aromatisse. In all the Yveltal decks that doesn't run Garbodor, Blastoise, Keldeo, obviously, and then I think Mega Kangaskhan and some other decks. So for that reason, I just have the 1 Leafeon. I figure it helps because you can just Lysander up their Keldeo, and if they have, let's see, 10, they have to have 5 energy in play for you to one-shot the Keldeo, but I think it's still worth it. Yeah, so that's why I have the 1 Leafeon. It's mostly just because its attack costs 1 energy, which is really nice, because not very many Pokemon in this deck have that. So yeah, and then the Flareon is obviously for Vengeance, because it does 20 plus 10 more damage for each Pokemon in your discard pile, meaning my discard pile if I'm playing this deck. And so since you have like 20 Pokemon, you tend to get a lot of Pokemon in your discard pile, and you can hit big numbers in the end of the game, like 170 and 180 sometimes, which will knock out pretty much every EX besides Megas. So it's nice for that. Also, it hits Virizion and Genesect for weakness. Yeah, I probably wouldn't keep this card unless it was Fire type. If it wasn't Fire type, it's actually not that great of an attacker. Vengeance is okay late game, but it's not that great. You can also use Heat Tackle because you have the Rainbow Energy in it. So it does 90 and you just do 10 to yourself. So this is great for making it so you don't need to have a Muscle Band or a certain amount of Pokemon in your discard pile to be able to one-shot Virizion or Genesect. So Rainbow Energy actually helps with that, and it has come in handy sometimes. So yeah, that's nice. And then we just have the 3 Eevee. Just because we want a 3-3 line, want to keep it consistent. A 4th one is not necessary at all. I think this is perfect. But like I said, you could change anything in this deck. It's really up to you. So we have 2 Shadow Steel Drifloon and 3 just regular Drifloon. I decided not to do any of the Derail Drifloon because, or Drifloon I mean, because we have 2 Enhanced Hammer, and I really just want a Shadow Steel. I figure if I'm going against a deck that runs Special Energy, I can take a Knockout with something and get some Special Energy in their discard pile, and then use my 2 Enhanced Hammer, and then hopefully by that time I'll have 4 or 3 Special Energy in their discard pile so that I can have a Muscle Band and do 170, or do 200 with no Muscle Band if they have 4 Special Energy in their discard pile. So this is great for hitting Deoxys for weakness, or pretty much just one-shotting anything in the Plasma deck, as long as you have the amount of Special Energy in their discard pile. That's basically the whole reason. It's also nice that it has a 1 energy cost for its attack. Like I was saying before, a lot of the Pokemon cost either a double colorless energy or a double colorless energy and another type. So it's very nice to have that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We have the 3 Drifloon just to improve consistency. I didn't want to do a 3-3 line just because I felt it wasn't necessary, but I like having 3 Drifloon. So that's all the Pokemon. This is for the draw support. We have 3 Tropical Beaches. This is their Stadium and draw support card. This is great early game just to help you set up faster. This helps a lot with this deck. I don't even think I would consider running this deck without Tropical Beach. It helps so much, pretty much every game. I know it's expensive and it's getting rotated, but I like it a lot. I'm not selling it. I'm not getting rid of it anytime soon. It's one of my favorite cards in the format. A lot of people hate it though, just because of its price and rarity and all that. Then we have 2 Lysander. These are supporters, not draw support cards. But this is just bringing up whatever you want. I tend to save these for late game just in case I need to take like my last 2 prizes and my opponent sends up something that I can't one-shot, which happens a lot actually. I win a lot of games by a late game Lysander. Say that 5 times fast. Yeah, so just 2 Lysander's fine. I want 3, but I don't want it that much. I originally had Palpad too, so I could recycle those, but I found I wasn't getting much use out of it, so I just took it out. We got 4N. This is standard every deck. Yeah, it's standard every deck. I don't really need to say anything about that. You guys know when you run 4N. It's a great supporter. Then we have 4 Juniper, also standard in every deck. Need to get more full arts. Kind of looks funny with just the one by itself, but you don't really care. Yeah, this is really nice also for getting Pokemon in the discard pile if you want to use Vengeance and just discarding anything you don't really need and drawing lots of cards. So yeah, Juniper's in pretty much everything. I have 2 Chorus. This is just for drawing a lot of cards. You know, once you have a full bench, which happens really quickly. I even thought about going up to a 3rd Chorus, and I still might do that. I'm not sure. This random receiver could easily be a 3rd Chorus, but right now we just have the 2. But yeah, this is a very good card in this deck. I find that I Chorus for like 9 or 10 a bunch of the time. It happens like a lot. So I love Chorus in this deck. And then we have 1 random receiver. This is so Sableye can Junk Hunt for it, for 1. And then just to have 1 more draw support card. I originally had 1 Skyla, but I just really didn't like it. No one really helps on the first turn when I needed a Tropical Beach. So I just put in 1 random receiver. The ace spec is Computer Search. You could do Dowsing Machine easily. I just like Computer Search. It improves consistency rather than helping conserve resources. And that's really the idea between the two, is you can have more consistency or you can have an extra go at 1 more card or something like that. But I think the extra consistency is helpful in this deck because it's a little bit hard to set up sometimes. Basically with this deck, if you don't set up, you're probably not going to win. So Computer Search helps a lot with that, and I think it's necessary. I also tried Life Dew. I still think it's actually a good play in this deck because if your opponent will just run out of resources. It's actually kind of hard for a lot of people to knock out 6 non-EXs. And so if you have a Life Dew, it's going to make it even harder for them. It's just because they have like 4 lasers and then a set amount of Muscle Band and a set amount of energy and Yveltal, and then like in Raybor, for example, they run out of superior energy retrievals, and Life Dew helps a lot with that. Also, you can Junk Hunt for Life Dew, so it's like they take 2 less prizes, and it's like that helps a lot. But Computer Searches just ultimately helps a lot with consistency. But anyway, on to Super Rod. This is a card that I haven't had a lot of use from, actually. I thought about taking it out a lot of times, excuse me. But ultimately, I just need it just in case something happens, like I Juniper away 2 Raichus on the first turn. That happened to me. 1 game, and Super Rod really helped me come back from that, and I'm pretty sure I would have lost if I didn't have Super Rod. So just for that 1 instance, I'm keeping the Super Rod. I'm sure something like that will happen again at some point and I'll need it, but it doesn't help that much a lot of the time. I just pretty much have it just in case something gets discarded too early in the game that'll make me lose. So yeah, that's why I have the Super Rod. I could even go down to 3 Juniper to make that less happen less, and then like add another Colress and then maybe take out the Super Rod. But I don't know. I gotta test with the deck more. I've been playing this deck for like 2 weeks now, and I've used it a bunch in those 2 weeks. So my list is probably like 20 cards different from the way I started with. But yeah, this deck takes. I mean, I change this deck every day. It's ridiculous. So yeah, we just have 2 Muscle Band. This is something I figured out pretty quickly. Is 2 Muscle Band is all you need. I had 3, and then I had 2 Muscle Band and a Silver Bangle. I tried out a lot of combinations, but ultimately, you don't really need Muscle Band in a lot of situations. Like, if you have a Raichu, and you want to do Circle Circuit, but you don't have another bench Pokemon, instead of adding another Muscle Band to make that happen more, you could just add another Pokemon to improve that consistency. Also, that's going to help, adding more Pokemon is going to help Flareon do more damage. And it's, I don't know, you just really only need it on Drifbloom and Lucario sometimes. So those are the only 2 reasons I have it, but I feel like I never really need more than 2. Yeah, so that's why I have those. We have 2 Enhanced Hammer. This is a card that I feel like should be played in almost every deck right now. All the big decks, all the best decks run Special Energy, and Enhanced Hammer is great for discarding those. So, I mean, yeah, it's the best thing for discarding those. So, yeah, I think 2 is definitely deserved in this deck. Like I said before, it works really well with Drifbloom. It can also help stunt your opponent's like setup when you're, because it takes a little bit to set up sometimes. So if you can slow your opponent down in the beginning, it can help make it so that you don't fall too behind. at any point. So 2 Enhanced Armor is great in this deck. I had 3 originally, but it just ended up being a dead card too often if my opponent didn't run any special energy. So I felt like 2 was enough. We got 4 Ultra Ball. 4 Ultra Ball might seem like a lot, but you really want to have that consistent setup. That's a really big reason why I want all these consistency cards, is just because you really need to set up early game. So that's why we have the 4 Ultra Ball. Also great for getting Pokemon in the discard pile so Flareon does more damage. But mostly it's just for consistency, so you can grab whatever you need. Discarding cards is sometimes hard. I mean, if you can't discard the Pokemon that you don't need, or you have Pokemon in your hand that you don't want to discard and just like things you need, it can be really hard to decide what you want to get rid of. But ultimately, I'm happy that I have Ultra Ball instead of other balls or just draw cards or anything like that, because it gets me what I need all the time. So for that reason, I think 4 Ultra Ball is deserved. And then we have 1 Level Ball just to help set up in the beginning more. I find I use this a lot to get a Pikachu out. Yeah, that also gets a Raichu out, so that's very nice, because Raichu has 90 HP, so you can grab that too. Yeah, this can grab like more than half of the Pokemon in the deck, so it's very nice for that. If this could be a 5th Ultra Ball, I would do it, but I think 1 Level Ball is a nice second option. So for the energy, this is the last part, by the way. The energy, we have 4 double colorless. A bunch of Pokemon in this deck need double colorless energy, like almost all of them, except for Driftbloom and Leafeon, I believe. So we have 4 of those. This is the most important resource of the deck, to be honest. If I could run 6, I would, but you know, you got the limit on special energy, so I can only run 4. We have 1 fighting energy. This is just because you can only run 4 rainbow. If you could run 5, I would. But yeah, the other nice thing about this is you can super rod the 1 back, so that's nice. The one problem I have with this deck is it can run out of steam if you need to discard energy too much, and not have a way to bring them back into the deck, which is a problem. So I think having the 1 basic energy is important. I'd like to have a second one. I even thought about adding 1 grass energy in, so that you could use Emerald Slash and actually do something with it, because it can hit Keldeo for weakness in some occasions. So I don't know. I might add a grass. It's an interesting idea. Also, Leafeon can use its second attack. I don't even know what it does, because honestly no one uses it. But yeah, so that's why we have the 1 basic energy. It's also really cool. Like, look at this fighting energy. It's freaking sick. Anyway. And then we have 4 rainbow energy. And I bet you're like, what? That looks like 3 rainbow energy in 1 blend. And that's because it is 3 rainbow energy in 1 blend. I just don't have a 4th rainbow energy on me at the moment. My friend's using my rainbow energy in his plasma deck, so I just have this. Honestly, this is fine. Just having one of these is fine, because it has metal and fighting on it, so it fits Lucario's ability requirement. So that doesn't matter too much. But yeah, these are great for all that stuff I said before about taking advantage of Virizion and Darkrai's ability. This makes it so Sableye can Junk Hunt. And then Rainbow Energy make it so that you can have a Steel and Fighting on Lucario at the same time in 1 energy. I actually had to think about this a lot. I was like, do I have to have a Metal and a Fighting to use Lucario's attack? And I realized eventually that 1 Rainbow works as a Metal and a Fighting at the same time. So you can have this in double colorless and use Lucario's attack and be Fighting and Steel type at the same time. So, yeah, that might not make sense, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. Yeah, so that's basically the reason why I added these. And, yeah, I think that's about it. The deck is super fun. I love using this deck. And when it works, it's very powerful. Sorry about the light. And we're adjusted. Okay. Yeah, I definitely think this is a top contender for Tier 1 decks. Like I said, if it sets up, you pretty much win all your Tier 1 matchups. When I say Tier 1 matchups, I mean decks, you beat decks that are Tier 1. So, I actually have this board up here that talks about the decks that I think are Tier 1 and all the matchups and stuff. Maybe I'll make a video about that sometime. But really, the way I see it is Flareon has a 65% chance of winning against Virizion Genesect and Yveltal Garbodor, has a 60% chance of winning against straight Yveltal. It goes down just because it's more aggressive and it's hard to deal with sometimes. But that was actually before I added Virizion, so I'd probably put it back up to a 65. And then a 75% chance of winning against Plasma Lugia. like everything in the deck is super effective against the Plasma deck. You've got Raichu for Lugia, Drifloon for Deoxys, and Lucario for the Thundurus. So you pretty much hit their entire deck for weakness. It's not hard to imagine that you would have a good matchup against that deck. Yeah, so great matchups there. Against fairies, I say I have a 65% chance of winning because I've got Lucario to hit their fairies for weakness, and then I've just got great type coverage, so I can hit most of their Pokemon for weakness, or Lysander or anything up, like their Aromatisse that'll pretty much shut down a lot of their strategy too. So yeah, I think we got a great matchup there, and I've played these matchups too. This isn't just numbers I'm making up. Like this is actually how it's been in my experience. And then I would say you got a 60-40 chance against M-Ward because they're going to run out of resources almost every time you play against them if you're knocking out 6 non-EXs, especially if you're on Life Dew. If you're on Life Dew, they're definitely not going to win. They just have too much trouble. They can't conserve their energy enough. Unless you're playing against a Rayward deck with like 12 fire energy or something like that, then they might win. Um, yeah, you don't really need Druddigon for that reason. The one deck that I think this deck might have a problem with is Blastoise. But Leafeon will help with that a little bit. And then they also kind of have trouble with knocking out non-EXs too because they still need to recover energy even though they have Keldeo. Excuse me. And then what else? So against TDK, which I think is one of the best decks in the format right now. Actually, I think it's the contender. If I go to Nats or Worlds, I might use TDK. But anyway, you pretty much have like a 65 or even a 70% chance matchup against them because you're still super effective against all their Pokemon, like I said, with Plasma. The only difference is they have Kyurem, and you're super effective against that with Lucario, like I said before. So if you just look at the matchups, everything is pretty much great. The only thing you're really going to run into that's a problem is like rogue decks. And sorry about that. And you're still going to have solid matchups against them just because the deck really just has good Pokemon. Even if they're not hitting for weakness, they're all just great Pokemon to use. And some will obviously be situational, like Drifloom. I find I discard Drifloom and Flareon like the most. But, yeah, so that's about it. Thanks for watching. This is a super long video. It's like 22 minutes long. But anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe for more. If you like the video, and comment if you want to tell me something. Tell me if you like these long videos. I don't know if you guys like me talking about like in-depth how the matches go, or how I talk about how all the cards work and stuff like that. I don't know if I'm being redundant, if I'm repeating myself too much. So any feedback you have is great. I'm trying to grow this channel. I know I only have like 37 subscribers, which is pretty light, but I'm growing. So thanks for watching, and I'll keep making videos.